The sun crested over the jagged mountains, casting long shadows across the dusty checkpoint. Ray Daniels had been awake for hours already, his internal clock still running on Ranger time, even 5 years after leaving the service. He stood on the rooftop observation platform, binoculars systematically scanning the eastern approach, his weathered face revealing nothing as he completed his morning ritual. Coffee, Chief. Sofia Rodriguez, one of the newer agents, approached with 2 steaming cups. Ray accepted with a nod. Anything overnight? His voice carried the gravelly texture of too many sandstorms and not enough hydration. A permanent souvenir from 3 deployments. All quiet. Just the usual coyotes and tumbleweeds. She hesitated, but Lopez thought he saw something on the thermal sweep around 0300, quarter-mile beyond the ridge. Gone before he could confirm. Ray's eyes narrowed slightly, the only visible reaction. Show me the footage. Inside the control room, Ray studied the grainy thermal recording, his fingers tracing the faint heat signature on the screen. Most would dismiss it as wildlife, but Ray recognized the deliberate movement pattern, the strategic positioning. Someone had been watching the checkpoint, using terrain features for concealment exactly as he'd been trained to do in the Hindu Kush. Run this against the pattern recognition software, he instructed, though his gut already knew. And get me satellite imagery from the last 72 hours. This remote West Texas checkpoint wasn't supposed to be noteworthy, just another understaffed outpost along the vast southern border. But Ray had transformed it into the most efficient and secure crossing point in the sector, much to the frustration of those who preferred the previous lax operations. When Border Patrol had recruited him 5 years ago, they'd been looking for bodies with tactical experience, not realizing exactly what they were getting in former Staff Sergeant Raymond Daniels, 75th Ranger Regiment, with 12 years of special operations experience and 7 combat deployments. They'd assigned him to this forgotten checkpoint expecting him to serve out his time quietly. Instead, he'd arrived and immediately begun implementing systems and protocols that had kept his men alive in Kandahar and Mosul. The higher-ups had initially pushed back against his excessive security measures and unorthodox training regimens, until the metrics came in, smuggling interdictions up 340%, narcotic seizures nearly quadrupled, and 0 casualties among his agents despite 3 armed confrontations. Chief, Director Patterson's on the line again, called Specialist Emerson, the youngest of Ray's team and a former Army communications expert. Says it's about the requisition forms. Ray suppressed a sigh. Tell him I'll call back after the morning briefing. The morning briefing, another innovation Ray had imported from his military days, had become legendary across Border Patrol. No time wasting, no bureaucratic nonsense. Just clear intelligence assessment, threat analysis, and operational planning. His team had come to respect the ritual, even if some had initially resisted the 0600 start time. 8 agents gathered in the briefing room, a mix of veterans and young recruits that Ray had personally selected and trained. He'd fought hard for staffing discretion, leveraging his growing reputation for results to win that battle with administration. Morning, Chief, they echoed as he entered. Ray nodded acknowledgement, scanning their faces, alert, ready. He'd instilled in them the same vigilance that had kept his Rangers alive through the worst ambushes in Helmand Province. We've got movement patterns suggesting surveillance operations, he began without preamble, bringing up the thermal imaging. Consistent with Cartel reconnaissance tactics. Harrison, what's your assessment? Mike Harrison, former Marine Scout sniper and Ray's second-in-command, leaned forward. Professional positioning, Chief. Not your typical border crosser. They maintained line of sight while keeping maximum cover. Agreed. Lopez, good catch on the thermal. That's exactly why we run continuous sweeps. Ray clicked through to a map of the sector. For the next 48 hours, we're implementing Posture 2. A subtle tension filled the room. Posture 2 meant additional patrols, enhanced security protocols, and full tactical loadouts. Measures Ray had designed based on combat readiness levels from his deployment days. Sir, Should we notify headquarters? Asked Rodriguez. Already sent the preliminary report. They've acknowledged, which was bureaucrats' speak for being ignored. Ray had learned that Border Patrol's Central Command operated with all the tactical awareness of a sleepy DMV office. After dismissing the team to their assignments, Ray retreated to his Spartan office. Unlike the cluttered spaces of his colleagues, Ray's desk contained only what was necessary: precisely arranged reports, a topographic map of the border sector, and a single framed photograph of his Ranger platoon in Afghanistan, taken 2 days before they'd lost Sergeant Williams to an IED. The loss still haunted him, as did others. Ray absently rubbed the scar tissue along his left forearm, a souvenir from the ambush that had followed, when he'd led what remained of his squad through 18 hours of continuous contact to reach extraction. His desk phone rang, interrupting the unwelcome memories. Daniels. Ray, it's Sheriff Becker. Got something you should know about. Tom Becker, the county sheriff and one of the few local officials Ray genuinely respected. Unlike most, Becker understood the realities of border security beyond the political talking points. I'm listening. One of my deputies picked up a teenager yesterday, dehydrated, coming across BLM land about 20 miles east of you. Kid was scared, more than the usual. Started talking once we got some fluids in him. Ray waited, knowing Becker wouldn't call without good reason. Says he was part of a group being moved north, but slipped away when he overheard the coyotes talking. Claims the Gulf Cartel is planning something big in your sector, moving high-value product and personnel. Gulf Cartel's expanding west? That crosses into Sinaloa territory. Exactly. Kid says they brought in special teams. Ex-military, according to what he overheard. They're establishing a new corridor and eliminating obstacles. Ray processed this against the surveillance signature from the night. The pieces aligned uncomfortably well. The kid verified? My immigration contact confirms his story checks out so far. They're still interviewing him. Send me everything you have. And Tom, appreciate the heads up. After hanging up, Ray pulled out the secure satellite phone he wasn't technically authorized to possess, a parting gift from a former teammate now working in intelligence. He dialed a number from memory. Stalker Actual. The voice that answered was guarded. Maverick here. Ray used his old call sign. Need a favor on border sector analysis. Gulf Cartel movements westward into Sinaloa territory. A pause. Unofficial channels only. Understood. Give me 12 hours. The line went dead. Ray returned the phone to its hidden compartment in his desk. His Ranger Brotherhood remained intact despite the years and miles, a network of skilled operators now scattered across various agencies and private sectors. They stayed connected, helping each other navigate the bureaucratic mazes that seemed designed to prevent actual security work. Ray stepped outside into the intensifying desert heat, watching his team execute the enhanced security protocols. Harrison was drilling the newer agents on tactical vehicle approaches, demonstrating the proper angles to minimize exposure. The checkpoint itself was nothing impressive, a collection of government-issue buildings, inspection lanes, and barriers. But what visitors couldn't see were the modifications Ray had gradually implemented. The enhanced sensor network, the reinforced defensive positions, the optimized fields of fire that ensured no approach went uncovered. When he'd first arrived, the checkpoint had been a vulnerability. Now it was a hardened position that could be effectively defended by a small team if necessary. The higher-ups had questioned these improvements, but Ray had disguised most as standard maintenance and training exercises. As the morning traffic began trickling through, mostly local ranchers and regular commuters, Ray observed his team's performance with critical precision. Rodriguez was getting better at reading behavioral indicators. Martinez needed to work on his vehicle approach positioning. Emerson's weapons handling was becoming more fluid. By midday, the West Texas heat had become oppressive, the air shimmering above the asphalt. Ray retreated momentarily to the control room to review the patrol reports and check satellite feeds. Everything normal, yet his instincts, honed through years of combat operations, signaled danger approaching. The satellite phone vibrated at 1800 hours precisely. Got something, his contact said without preamble. Significant Gulf Cartel movement confirmed. They've brought in a special tactical unit led by someone called El Cuchillo. Ray felt a chill despite the lingering heat. The knife. Former GAFE operator, went private, then Cartel. Real name Alejandro Vega. Suspected in at least 14 attacks on military and police installations in Mexico. Specializes in overwhelming force and shock tactics. The Mexican Special Forces, Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, produced skilled operators. Some, like Vega, had taken their training to the cartels, where the pay was better and the rules non-existent. Why this sector? Why now? Intelligence suggests a power consolidation. The Gulf Cartel is making a play for new territory while testing border defenses. Your checkpoint's reputation as a hard target may have attracted attention. They're testing us. Assessment suggests your location will face direct action within the next 72 hours, likely preceded by probing attacks to assess response capabilities. After ending the call, Ray walked the perimeter, seeing the checkpoint through new eyes as a target. His mind calculated angles, approaches, vulnerabilities. What would he do if he were planning the assault? Where were the weaknesses? As sunset painted the desert in amber and shadow, Ray called Harrison over. "Mike, remember Outpost Kingfisher?" Harrison's expression darkened. Both men had rotated through that remote Afghan outpost before it was nearly overrun in 2011. "We're implementing Kingfisher protocols," Ray said quietly. "Full defensive posture, rotating observation teams, silent running on comms." Harrison nodded, no questions asked. He'd understand the implication. They were preparing for imminent attack. Later that night, Ray placed 3 calls to former Rangers now working border operations in adjacent sectors. Each promised to be ready if needed. The official channels might move slowly, but the veteran network operated on trust and shared experience. In his quarters, Ray opened his footlocker and removed a carefully wrapped package, his personal kit from Ranger days. The custom-modified M4 with the specialized optics package that had served him through his darkest days overseas. The battle-worn tactical vest arranged precisely how he preferred. The combat knife gifted to him by his father, a Vietnam veteran and Texas state trooper who'd taught Ray about duty long before the Army had. As he methodically checked each piece of equipment, Ray reflected on the path that had led him here. He joined the Army at 18, seeking purpose and direction. Found both in the Rangers, where excellence wasn't praised but expected. Through 12 years of service, he'd become the quiet professional, the man other soldiers wanted covering their flank when operations went sideways. After his last deployment, something had broken inside him. Not dramatically, but subtly, a hairline fracture in his resolve. He'd left the service with honors, but without direction. Until Border Patrol had offered a chance to continue serving, protecting a different frontier, but with the same sense of mission. Now, as he reassembled his kit with practiced efficiency, Ray acknowledged a truth he'd been avoiding. Part of him had been waiting for this moment. The quiet vigilance, the constant preparation, it hadn't just been about doing his job effectively. It had been about being ready for when the fight inevitably found him again. Because Ray Daniels understood something most civilians never would. There were wolves in the world. They moved in shadows, testing boundaries, hunting the vulnerable. And sometimes, the only thing standing between those wolves and their prey were men and women who had learned to hunt wolves themselves. Tomorrow, he would brief his team fully, train them for what was coming, prepare them for the storm about to break over their small checkpoint. But tonight, as the desert fell silent under the stars, Ray stepped outside and listened to the darkness, reacquainting himself with the focused clarity that had kept him alive through countless combat operations. The border stretched before him, a line on a map that men like El Cuchillo saw as a challenge rather than a boundary. Ray rolled his shoulders, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle into place. "All right then," he whispered to the night. "Let's see what you've got." Dawn broke harsh and sudden over the checkpoint, the desert offering no gentle transition from night to day. Ray had been awake for hours, reviewing satellite imagery on a secure tablet. The images confirmed his suspicions, subtle changes in the landscape indicating human movement, paths that weren't there before, disturbed Earth at strategic elevations. The desert had its own language, and Ray spoke it fluently. "Chief, we've got unusual traffic patterns," Rodriguez reported, entering the command center with a data tablet. 3 identical white F-150s passed northbound through checkpoint 16 yesterday. Different drivers, same make, model, year. All with farm use permits. Ray studied the license plate captures. "Run these against known cartel vehicle patterns." "Already did." 2 plates match partial configurations from the Gulf Cartel vehicle database. Ray nodded. "Scouts. Probing the system, testing response times, looking for weaknesses. Classic reconnaissance before a major operation." "And there's this," Rodriguez continued, swiping to another screen. "Drone captured this 10 miles southeast, near the old mining road." The image showed tire tracks diverging from the established trail, heading toward a dry creek bed that offered concealed approach to within 2 miles of the checkpoint. "Someone's doing their homework," Ray observed, zooming in on the tracks. "Heavy-duty, off-road tires. Military pattern. When was this?" "Yesterday, 1,500 hours." Ray checked the checkpoint logs. "Corresponds with shift change. They're watching our routines." He straightened up. "Change all patrol schedules. Randomize shift transitions. No patterns they can exploit." By mid-morning, Ray had implemented a series of countermeasures. Patrols now departed at irregular intervals. Observation posts rotated unpredictably. He doubled the sensor perimeter, using equipment borrowed from military surplus through his Ranger connections. Harrison approached as Ray was adjusting a camouflaged motion sensor in the scrub beyond the main road. "Local intel coming in," Harrison said quietly. "Manuel's grandmother called." Ray paused. Manuel Ortiz ran the gas station 10 miles north, the last fuel stop for 50 miles. His grandmother, Elena, lived in a small village across the border and had provided reliable information in the past, asking only that they turn a blind eye when her younger relatives crossed over for medical care. What did she say? Strangers in the village. Men with city accents and military bearing. They've taken over the Suarez compound. No one's allowed near it. The Suarez compound, a former ranch house with good elevation and clear sight lines to the crossing points. Ray had noted its tactical significance the first week he'd arrived. How many? She couldn't get close enough to count, but at least 3 vehicles arrived yesterday, heavy equipment being unloaded at night. Ray nodded, mentally calculating distances and approach vectors. "Tell Emerson to redirect our surveillance drone for a pass over the Suarez compound. Passive scans only, high altitude." As Harrison departed, Ray felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the body's recognition of imminent conflict before the mind fully processes it. He'd felt the same sensation hours before his convoy was hit in Helmand Province. Back at the checkpoint, Ray gathered his core team. 8 agents with the right combination of experience and adaptability. He'd need every one of them in the coming days. "We're being assessed for an operation," he stated plainly, pointing to the map where he'd marked recent suspicious activities. Gulf Cartel is establishing a foothold in this sector, led by a former Mexican Special Forces operator. He detailed the intelligence, the pattern of surveillance, the positioning of resources across the border. "Why us?" asked Martinez, the former Marine who handled K-9 operations. "There are easier crossing points." "Because we're effective," Ray answered. "We've interdicted more shipments in the past year than the 3 neighboring checkpoints combined. We're the obstacle they need to remove to establish their new corridor. So we call in reinforcements," suggested Emerson. "Get border tactical deployed." Ray shook his head. Request is already in. Denied due to insufficient actionable intelligence. Headquarters once documented evidence of imminent threat. A familiar frustration passed across their faces, the same bureaucratic hurdles they'd all faced before. So we get that evidence, Harrison concluded. Exactly. Ray pointed to the map. Tonight, we run reconnaissance. Confirm what we're facing. The desert night provided perfect cover for their operation. Ray led a 3-person team. Himself, Harrison, and Lopez, who had experience as a combat tracker. They moved silently across the terrain, using natural features for concealment, navigating by starlight to avoid detection. 2 miles from the border, they established an observation post on a rocky outcropping that provided clear lines of sight to the Suarez compound. Ray set up the thermal imaging equipment while Harrison deployed a directional microphone. Movement at the north entrance, Lopez whispered, focusing his spotting scope. 2 guards, armed. Military posture. Ray studied them through the thermal sight. Their positioning, the way they held their weapons, their disciplined scanning patterns. These weren't ordinary cartel gunmen. They moved like professionals. For 3 hours, they documented activity at the compound. Vehicles arriving and departing. Guard rotations. Communication patterns. Ray recognized the methodical preparation for a significant operation. Chief, Harrison whispered, adjusting the directional microphone. You should hear this. Through the earpiece, Ray listened to fragments of conversation, Spanish with northern Mexican accents, discussing checkpoint security, patrol patterns, response capabilities. Need to neutralize their communications first. El Cuchillo wants the primary target alive if possible. Shipment moves 48 hours after we secure the crossing. Ray's blood went cold. Primary target. They weren't just planning to overwhelm the checkpoint. They had specific objectives, including, apparently, capturing someone. As they withdrew before dawn, Ray processed the information. This wasn't a standard smuggling operation. The level of planning, the resources being committed, the involvement of someone like El Cuchillo, it all pointed to something more significant. Back at the checkpoint, Ray secured the reconnaissance data and called an emergency briefing. We're facing a coordinated assault, likely within the next 48 hours, he told his team, displaying the thermal images they'd captured. Objective appears to be establishing a secure corridor for a high-value shipment. What kind of opposition? Asked Martinez. At least 12 operators with military training. Heavy weapons observed. Tactical communications equipment. They're preparing thoroughly. Ray outlined what they'd learned. The cartel team's composition, equipment, likely approach vectors. What about backup? Rodriguez asked. I've submitted the evidence to headquarters with an urgent request for tactical support. Ray's tone made it clear he wasn't optimistic. I've also activated unofficial channels. The team understood. Ray's Ranger network. Former operators now scattered throughout border enforcement agencies. Until then, we prepare. This checkpoint will not fall while we're here. Throughout the day, they fortified their position. Additional barriers were positioned to channel any vehicular approach into pre-sighted fields of fire. Building entry points were hardened. Fields of fire were cleared and marked for distances. Ray drew on every lesson learned during outpost defense operations in Afghanistan. By mid-afternoon, an unmarked helicopter landed briefly, dropping off specialized equipment from Ray's Ranger contacts. Advanced communications gear resistant to jamming, additional tactical equipment, and medical supplies. No questions asked, no paperwork filed. At 1,600 hours, Ray's satellite phone vibrated. Daniels. Ray, it's Becker. Just intercepted radio traffic about 30 miles east of you. Border Patrol vehicle ambushed. 2 agents down. Ray's jaw tightened. Condition? 1 critical, 1 stable. Witnesses report multiple assailants. Well organized, speaking Spanish. They took the agents' communications equipment and tactical gear. Probing our response capabilities, Ray concluded. Testing how quickly backup arrives, what resources get deployed. That's how I read it. I've got 3 deputies heading your way. Former military, all of them. They'll be there within the hour. Appreciated, Tom. As dusk approached, 3 sheriff's department vehicles arrived. The deputies, 2 former Army, 1 Marine, integrated smoothly with Ray's team. Additional guns, but more importantly, additional training and experience. Ray positioned them strategically, combining local knowledge with tactical expertise. Deputy Wilson, who'd served 2 tours as military police in Iraq, took charge of entrance security. The others reinforced the perimeter observation posts. Chief, called Emerson from the communications room. Drone feed shows vehicles approaching from the south. 5 miles out, coming fast. Ray hurried to the monitor. 3 SUVs, driving without lights, moving rapidly across the desert floor toward the checkpoint, not following any road. Sound the alarm. Battle positions. The checkpoint transformed instantly. Lights extinguished. Defensive positions manned. Weapons ready. Ray moved to the rooftop observation post, night vision equipment scanning the approaching vehicles. Range 4 miles and closing, reported Harrison beside him. I count 8, no, 10 heat signatures. Armed. Ray studied their approach. The vehicles moved with precision, maintaining tactical spacing, using terrain features effectively. This wasn't a random probe. They're testing our early warning capabilities, Ray assessed, seeing how close they can get before we detect them. He keyed his radio. All units hold positions. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Let's see what they do. The vehicles halted 2 miles from the checkpoint, just at the edge of effective engagement range. Figures deployed, establishing observation positions. One set up what appeared to be long-range surveillance equipment. For 30 minutes, they observed the checkpoint. Then, as coordinated as their arrival, they withdrew, disappearing into the desert night. They're gathering tactical intelligence, Ray told his assembled team afterward. That wasn't an attack, it was reconnaissance. They're building a complete picture of our capabilities before the main assault. So what's next? Asked Rodriguez. They'll probe our flanks. Test our response times. Look for blind spots. Ray pointed to the tactical map. We need to show them enough to make them cautious, but not our full capabilities. Throughout the night, they detected multiple intrusion attempts. Small teams approaching from different vectors, testing the sensor perimeter, documenting response patterns. Ray's team responded each time with disciplined precision, revealing enough presence to deter without exposing their complete defensive setup. By morning, Ray had compiled a comprehensive assessment of the cartel's reconnaissance activities. They were facing a well-organized, professional force with specific objectives. The preliminary probing suggested they were preparing for a significant operation, likely within the next 24 hours. His official request for reinforcement remained under review at headquarters. Just after noon, a battered pickup truck approached the checkpoint from the north. The driver, an older Mexican man Ray recognized as a local rancher, appeared nervous. Senor Daniels, he called as Ray approached his vehicle. Elena Ortiz sent me. I have a message for you. Ray nodded. Elena, Manuel's grandmother, and their source across the border. They are coming tonight, the man said quietly. Many men, many weapons. Elena heard them talking. They plan to take the checkpoint before dawn. How many? She counted 20, but there are more nearby. The leader, they call him El Cuchillo, he arrived yesterday. Ray thanked the man, pressing a folded $100 bill into his hand. Tell Elena to stay away from the border tonight. After the truck departed, Ray assembled his team for final preparations. We have confirmation. They're moving tonight, before dawn. He studied the determined faces before him. This is what we've trained for. Each of you knows your position, your responsibility. We're outnumbered but not outmatched. He outlined the final defensive strategy. Layered security. Interlocking fields of fire. Communications protocols if standard channels were jammed. Chief, Emerson said, looking up from his communication console. Just intercepted radio chatter from their forward element. They're discussing personnel by name. Ray tensed. What names? Yours, sir. They specifically mentioned targeting the Ranger. So he was the primary target mentioned in the reconnaissance. Ray absorbed this without visible reaction, though it confirmed his suspicions. This wasn't just about establishing a smuggling corridor. It had become personal. His effectiveness had drawn attention from cartel leadership. As afternoon faded into evening, Ray made a final inspection of their defenses. The checkpoint had been transformed into a hardened position, not impregnable, but defensible, particularly against adversaries who didn't know what they were really facing. Because while the cartel forces had been conducting their reconnaissance, Ray had been implementing countermeasures drawn from hard-learned lessons in Afghanistan and Iraq. False heat signatures deployed to mislead thermal imaging. Defensive positions concealed from standard observation. Communication redundancies to survive jamming attempts. Most importantly, he'd positioned his people according to their strengths. Harrison overseeing the southern approach with the long-range capability. Martinez and his tactical dog covering the eastern flank where the terrain offered infiltration routes. Rodriguez manning the surveillance systems with her analytical expertise. At sunset, Ray gathered them for a final briefing. The checkpoint was as ready as it could be with limited resources. Whatever happens tonight, he told them, remember your training. Trust your teammates. We hold until reinforcements arrive. He didn't mention that those reinforcements might not come through official channels. His Ranger contacts had acknowledged his situation but made no promises. The sheriff's deputies were already integrated into their defensive plan. Beyond that, they were on their own. As darkness settled over the desert, Ray took up his position in the main building's observation post. From here, he could direct the defense while maintaining visual coverage of the most likely approach vectors. The hours passed with tense vigilance. Midnight came and went. The desert fell into that deepest quiet that comes before dawn, the darkness at its most absolute. Ray's radio crackled softly. "Chief, movement on the southern ridge," reported Harrison from his position. "Heat signatures moving into position. I count 6, spread in tactical formation. Hold position. Report any advance." Ray switched channels. "All units, southern element deploying. Maintain discipline. No engagement unless authorized." For 30 minutes, the cartel observers remained on the ridge, studying the checkpoint. Then another report came in. "Chief, we've got vehicles approaching from the east. 3, no, for SUVs. Running dark, moving fast." Ray checked the tactical display. The southern element was holding position, likely providing overwatch for the approaching vehicles. "They're splitting," came the update. 2 continuing north toward the main entrance, 2 circling to approach from the west. Classic pincer movement, designed to divide defensive attention. Ray had anticipated this. Maintain positions. Let them commit to their approach. The vehicles closed to within a mile before stopping. Figures deployed rapidly, taking covered positions behind terrain features. Professional, coordinated movement. Ray's satellite phone vibrated. Unknown number. "Daniels. Ranger." The voice spoke English with a heavy Mexican accent. "This is El Cuchillo." Ray kept his voice neutral. "You're trespassing on United States soil." A soft laugh. "So formal. I was expecting more from the man who has caused my organization so many problems. Your organization has options. Turn around. Find another route. This checkpoint remains closed to unauthorized crossing. I admire your confidence, Ranger, but you are outnumbered. Your reinforcements have been delayed. The smart action is to surrender the checkpoint. My quarrel is not with you or your people personally. That right? Then why the special attention? Why target the Rangers specifically?" A pause. "You've earned a reputation. The cartel respects effectiveness. Step aside, and there's a place for someone with your skills in our organization. Not interested in a career change. Then perhaps you're interested in survival. You have 15 minutes to lower your weapons and open the gates. After that, we take the checkpoint by force." The line went dead. Ray keyed his radio. "All units, Prepare for imminent engagement. They've issued an ultimatum, 15 minutes. Think they'll honor the time frame? Asked Harrison. No, Ray replied, checking his weapon. That's just to make us focus on the main force while they move their infiltration team into position. As if confirming his assessment, Lopez's voice came through from the eastern perimeter. Movement in the drainage channel. Three-man team approaching, using advanced cover techniques. Martinez, shift to support Lopez. Contain, but do not engage yet. Ray studied the tactical display. They're probing all approaches simultaneously, looking for the weak point. Within minutes, reports came in of movement on all sides. Coordinated teams moving into position around the checkpoint's perimeter. The trap was being set. Ray felt a cold clarity settle over him. The familiar state of heightened awareness that had carried him through the worst firefights in Afghanistan. Time seemed to slow as his senses sharpened, processing multiple information streams simultaneously. They'll hit the power first, he said into the radio. Then communications. When I give the signal, switch to alternate power and comm systems. As the 15-minute mark approached, Ray watched the tactical display. The cartel forces had established positions on all sides, at least 20 operators that they could confirm. Well-armed, well-positioned. But they didn't know about the countermeasures, the reinforced positions, the backup systems. Most importantly, they didn't know they were facing a team trained by a ranger who had defended outposts against far worse odds in the mountains of Afghanistan. The facility's lights cut out suddenly, plunging the checkpoint into darkness. Seconds later, the radio crackled with interference as jamming began. Execute blackout protocol, Ray ordered into his backup radio. Around the checkpoint, his team switched to the secondary communication system and activated the pre-positioned night vision equipment. In the darkness, Ray could sense the cartel forces tensing for their assault, believing they had blinded the checkpoint's defenders. What they couldn't know was that his team had been drilling for exactly this scenario for weeks. The first probing shots came from the southern ridge, designed to draw return fire and reveal defensive positions. Hold, Ray commanded. Let them commit. Through his night vision, he watched as the first assault team began moving forward from the east, using the drainage ditch for cover. Exactly as he'd anticipated. Exactly where Martinez was waiting with his tactical dog and a clear field of fire. The first explosion hit the northeastern perimeter fence, illuminating the desert in a flash of searing light. Ray instinctively ducked as debris peppered the observation post roof. Eastern breach. Lopez's voice crackled over the radio. Three-man team moving through the gap. Ray assessed the tactical display. The explosion was a diversion, meant to draw attention and resources to the eastern perimeter while their main force approached from the south. Lopez, delay but withdraw to secondary position, Ray ordered. Martinez, hold the east building approach. Everyone else maintained positions. Through his night vision, Ray tracked multiple heat signatures advancing in tactical formation. At least 12 operators approaching from the south, moving in coordinated fire teams. Another 8 converging from the west. Professional, disciplined movement. These weren't ordinary cartel gunmen. They moved like trained military units. Chief, I've got 4 targets in optimal range, Harrison reported from his overwatch position. Permission to engage? Negative. Wait for my signal. Ray wanted them committed to their approach before revealing their defensive capabilities. The cartel forces advanced steadily, using terrain features for cover, maintaining disciplined spacing. Their confidence was evident. They believed they had superior numbers, superior positioning, and the element of surprise. They were wrong on at least one count. A second explosion rocked the western perimeter, followed immediately by sustained automatic weapons fire directed at the main building. Bullets impacted the reinforced windows and the hardened exterior walls Ray had quietly upgraded over the previous months. Multiple contacts west perimeter, Rodriguez reported. They're using the maintenance shed for cover. Hold positions, Ray commanded. Let them advance to the marker points. Ray had established predetermined engagement zones during their defensive preparations, areas where advancing forces would be exposed to interlocking fields of fire. The cartel teams were methodically moving into those kill zones, unaware of the trap. When the lead elements crossed the invisible line Ray had drawn on his tactical map, he gave the order. All positions, execute Ranger protocol. Around the checkpoint perimeter, his team sprang the trap. Pre-positioned flashbang grenades detonated simultaneously along the southern and western approaches, disorienting the advancing cartel operators. Immediately following, targeted fire erupted from concealed defensive positions, catching the attackers in carefully planned crossfire. Through his tactical sight, Ray watched 3 cartel operators drop immediately. The others scattered, seeking cover, momentarily disorganized by the unexpected resistance. Shift fire. Maintain pressure, Ray ordered, moving to a different firing position as return fire targeted his previous location. For 15 frantic minutes, the checkpoint defenders held their positions against the initial assault. The cartel forces pulled back to covered positions, regrouping after their unexpected reception. "We've got wounded," Martinez reported from the eastern building. Rodriguez took a round to the shoulder. "Not critical, but she's out of the fight. Get her to the medical station," Ray ordered. Emerson, shift to cover Martinez's sector. The brief respite wouldn't last long. Ray knew El Cuchillo would adjust tactics after the initial failure. The cartel commander hadn't earned his reputation by giving up after initial resistance. Ray's mind flashed back to Outpost Ripcord in Afghanistan. A similar situation, outnumbered, facing a determined enemy with superior firepower. The memory came with vivid clarity, the taste of dust in his mouth, the weight of responsibility for his squad, the methodical calculation of angles and approaches that had kept them alive through 18 hours of sustained contact. The radio crackled. "Chief, vehicle movement south perimeter. They're bringing up a technical." Ray moved to the observation position. Through his scope, he spotted the modified pickup truck with a mounted heavy machine gun approaching from the south. A significant escalation that could change the balance of the engagement. "Harrison, priority target. Disable that gun." "Copy that." Harrison's precision rifle cracked twice. The first round struck the gunner, the second hit something critical in the vehicle's engine block. The technical swerved, then rolled as the driver lost control, coming to rest on its side. "Good shot. Maintain overwatch on the southern approach." The cartel forces adjusted quickly, laying down suppressive fire while 2 teams maneuvered toward the western entrance. Ray spotted a figure directing the movements, a tall man with distinctive bearing, moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. El Cuchillo himself, coordinating the assault personally. Harrison, possible HVT at the western approach. 200 meters, behind the red boulder. "I see him. No clear shot. Maintain observation. Report if you get an opportunity." Another explosion rocked the checkpoint, this one breaching the main gate. Gunfire intensified as cartel operators pushed through the opening, seeking cover among the inspection lanes and barriers. "They're inside the perimeter," Lopez shouted over the radio. At least 6 operators moving toward the main building. Ray keyed his radio. "Execute Protocol Echo." Around the checkpoint, pre-positioned defensive measures activated. The floodlights Ray had installed weeks earlier, officially for enhanced inspection capabilities, suddenly illuminated, bathing the compound in harsh white light. The sudden transition from darkness blinded attackers who had adjusted to night operations. In the confusion, Ray's team engaged from their hardened positions. 3 cartel operators fell immediately. The others retreated to whatever cover they could find, pinned down by accurate fire from multiple angles. "Chief, East Building is compromised," Martinez reported, his voice tight with tension. 3 hostiles breached the lower level. "We're falling back to position Bravo." "Acknowledged." Emerson, shift fire to support Martinez. Ray studied the tactical situation. They had repelled the initial assault, inflicted casualties, and maintained control of the main building. But the cartel forces still had numerical superiority and were now inside the perimeter. The situation was deteriorating. A new explosion tore through the checkpoint's communications array on the roof, a precisely targeted strike that took out their main antenna system. Even with the backup communications, their ability to coordinate would be degraded. All units switched to contingency frequency, Ray ordered, adjusting his radio. Maintain discipline, conserve ammunition. Through the observation slit, Ray spotted movement at the perimeter fence, more cartel reinforcements arriving. The situation was rapidly becoming untenable. The satellite phone vibrated again. "You fight well, Ranger." El Cuchillo's voice came through, strangely calm amid the chaos. "But this is merely the beginning. My men are inside your perimeter. Your communications are compromised. You have no reinforcements coming." "We're still here," Ray replied, scanning the compound for the cartel leader's position. "And your men are dying for your ambition. Acceptable losses. Unlike you, I have resources to spare." A pause. "I'm curious, though, why fight so hard for a government that doesn't support you? That leaves you undermanned, under-equipped, facing superior forces alone." "Not fighting for them," Ray responded, spotting movement near the western building. "Fighting for the people under my command. For the oath I took. Noble. Feudal, but noble." El Cuchillo's tone hardened. "Final offer, Ranger. Surrender the checkpoint. Guarantee your people's safety. Or watch them die one by one as we burn everything to the ground." Ray didn't answer, terminating the call. He keyed his radio instead. "All units, status report." "South position holding," Harrison reported. "I've got 5 confirmed, 3 more wounded. Running low on ammo for the long gun." "East building compromised," Martinez added. "We're secure in the fallback position, but they control the ground floor." "Rodriguez is stable but needs medical evac." "West perimeter holding," Lopez reported. 2 wounded but still in the fight. Ray calculated their options. They'd inflicted significant casualties. Perhaps a third of the cartel force was down. But their own position was deteriorating. Without reinforcements, they couldn't hold indefinitely. The sound of helicopter rotors suddenly cut through the gunfire. "Aircraft approaching from the northeast," Harrison reported. "Can't identify in the darkness." Ray moved to the observation point, scanning the night sky. The helicopter was running without lights, approaching low and fast, a tactical approach. But whose? "All units, maintain positions. Unknown aircraft approaching." The helicopter swept over the checkpoint, hovering momentarily before banking toward the southern perimeter where the heaviest cartel concentration remained. Then Ray saw the distinctive outline of door gunners taking position. "Get down," he shouted into the radio as the helicopter's miniguns opened fire, raking the cartel positions with devastating effect. Controlled bursts that avoided the checkpoint buildings while systematically eliminating the exposed cartel operators. Ray recognized the tactics immediately. The precision, the fire discipline, the coordinated approach. Not regular military or law enforcement. These were operators. His satellite phone vibrated. "Stalker actual to Maverick. Looks like you started the party without us." Ray felt a surge of grim satisfaction. His Ranger network had come through after all. Better late than never, Stalker. "We've got 2 birds, 8 operators. Border Patrol officially knows nothing about this. We're here as concerned citizens responding to reports of cross-border incursion. Understand, southern and western perimeters have heaviest concentration. We've got friendly wounded in the east building requiring extract." "Copy that. Stand by for dynamic entry." The helicopter banked sharply, making another pass over the cartel positions, the minigun delivering precisely targeted fire. A second helicopter appeared from the north, following the same approach. The effect on the cartel forces was immediate. Caught in the open, subjected to fire from above, their disciplined formation fractured. Some sought deeper cover. Others began retreating toward their vehicles. All units, prepare to coordinate with incoming friendlies, Ray ordered. Harrison, maintain overwatch, priority on cartel leadership. The first helicopter set down briefly beyond the northern perimeter. For operators in civilian tactical gear deployed rapidly, moving with the synchronized precision that identified them immediately as special operations veterans. The cartel forces responded with intensified fire, attempting to suppress the new threat. But caught between Ray's entrenched defenders and the helicopter-deployed operators, their position rapidly became untenable. Through his scope, Ray spotted El Cuchillo directing a fighting retreat toward the remaining vehicles at the southern perimeter. The cartel commander moved with calm efficiency even as his operation collapsed around him. Harrison, HVT moving south toward the black SUV. Can you engage? Negative. No clear shot through the crossfire. Ray made a quick decision. I'm moving to intercept. Maintain overwatch on southern approach. Chief, that's outside our defensive perimeter, Harrison protested. Acknowledged. Maintain command in my absence. Ray moved from his position, descending through the hardened main building to the ground floor. The gunfire had shifted primarily to the southern perimeter as the cartel forces concentrated on escape rather than assault. Exiting through a reinforced side door, Ray moved in a combat crouch toward the southern fence line. The helicopter overhead continued to provide suppressive fire, forcing the cartel operators to keep their heads down as they withdrew. Through his night vision, Ray tracked El Cuchillo's movement. The cartel commander had reached the disabled technical vehicle and was using it for cover while directing his remaining forces. Ray circled wide, using the confusion of the helicopter assault for concealment, closing to within 70 meters of El Cuchillo's position. Close enough. He keyed his radio. Harrison, I've got eyes on the HVD. Can you put suppressive fire on the vehicles to his left? Drive him toward the drainage ditch. Copy that. Harrison's precision rifle cracked 3 times in rapid succession, striking the vehicles near El Cuchillo. As predicted, the cartel commander moved away from the impacts, seeking better cover in the direction of the drainage ditch, directly into Ray's line of sight. Ray centered his holographic sight on El Cuchillo's chest and fired a controlled pair. The first round struck center mass, staggering the cartel commander. The second round missed as El Cuchillo twisted away, remarkably still functional despite being hit. Before Ray could adjust his aim, return fire kicked up dust at his feet. 2 cartel operators had spotted him and were converging rapidly, forcing Ray to seek cover behind a concrete barrier. Bullets impacted around him as Ray assessed his situation. He was now cut off from the checkpoint, caught between the retreating cartel forces and their commander. Chief, what's your position? Harrison's voice came through the radio. Southern perimeter, pinned down near the drainage ditch. HVT is wounded but mobile. We've got operators moving to support. Ray peered around the barrier. Through swirling dust and muzzle flashes, he spotted El Cuchillo limping toward the remaining SUV, supported by 2 of his men. Despite the wound, the cartel commander was escaping. Making a split-second decision, Ray broke from cover, firing as he moved to a new position. His rounds forced El Cuchillo's supporters to seek cover, momentarily separating them from their commander. The distance closed to 30 meters. Ray had a clear shot at the isolated, wounded cartel leader. Then the world exploded in sound and fury. A hidden cartel operator had flanked Ray's position, emerging from the drainage ditch behind him. The first burst of automatic fire missed, impacting the ground beside Ray. The second caught him as he turned, rounds tearing through his left side, spinning him to the ground. The pain was immediate and intense, a burning sensation that tore through his awareness. Ray rolled behind a small berm, returning fire automatically. His rounds caught the attacker's center mass, dropping him. But the damage was done. Ray pressed his hand against his side, feeling the warm wetness spreading across his tactical vest. The rounds had found gaps in his armor, penetrating his lower left side. Through gritted teeth, Ray keyed his radio. Officer down, southern perimeter. HVT escaping in black SUV. Hold position, came the immediate response. Medic inbound. Ray applied pressure to the wound, assessing his condition with clinical detachment. Not immediately fatal, but serious. Blood loss would become critical if not addressed soon. Through fading consciousness, Ray watched as the black SUV carrying El Cuchillo skidded away, accelerating into the desert night. The other cartel vehicles followed, abandoning their dead and wounded as the helicopters continued their assault. Ray's vision narrowed, darkness creeping in from the edges. He fought to remain conscious, maintaining pressure on his wound. In the distance, he could hear the sound of the checkpoint battle subsiding as the cartel forces completed their retreat. Memories flashed through his mind, fragmented, vivid images from previous firefights. The ambush outside Kandahar that had claimed half his squad. The rooftop extraction in Mosul under heavy fire. The defense of outpost Ripcord against overwhelming opposition. Each time, he'd led his people through. Each time, he'd brought them home, sometimes bloodied, sometimes broken, but alive. This time would be no different. Ray forced himself to focus, fighting through the pain and encroaching darkness. He could hear voices approaching, American accents, tactical communications. Friendlies. Over here. We've got him. Hands reached for him, assessing his wounds with professional efficiency. Hang in there, Chief. We've got you. The last thing Ray registered before unconsciousness took him was the radio chatter. The checkpoint was secure. His team had held. The cartel assault had failed. They'd won. For now. The steady beeping of medical equipment pulled Ray back to consciousness. His eyes opened to a hospital room, stark white walls, medical equipment, the antiseptic smell he recognized from too many previous recoveries. Welcome back, Chief. Harrison sat in the chair beside the bed, looking exhausted but intact. The checkpoint. Ray's voice came out as a rasp. Secure. Border Tactical finally showed up about an hour after the cartel retreated. Convenient timing. Ray attempted to sit up, wincing as pain flared through his bandaged side. Easy, Harrison cautioned. 2 rounds went through your side. Doctor says you were lucky. Missed anything critical, but you lost a lot of blood. Casualties. The question that had haunted Ray through every command assignment. Rodriguez took a round to the shoulder. Lopez got hit with shrapnel from one of the explosions. Both stable, both will recover. Harrison paused. We lost Emerson. Sniper caught him when he moved to support Martinez. Ray closed his eyes, absorbing the blow. Emerson, the youngest of his team. Former Army communications specialist with less than 2 years on the job. Ray had recruited him personally. His family, being notified today. Sheriff Becker's handling it personally. Ray nodded, grateful for the sheriff's understanding of what that notification meant. The cartel forces? 17 confirmed Kia. At least that many wounded. They left their dead behind when they retreated. Harrison's expression hardened. El Cuchillo escaped, but your rounds caught him good. Border Patrol intercepted radio traffic indicating he's seeking medical attention across the border. And our unofficial reinforcements? Gone before Border Tactical arrived. No official record of their involvement. Ray processed this information, reconstructing the engagement in his mind. They'd held against a force nearly 3 times their size, equipped with superior weapons and tactical training. Prevented the checkpoint from being overrun. But at a cost. Always a cost. The door opened, admitting a man in a Border Patrol dress uniform with command insignia. Deputy Commissioner Walsh, Regional Headquarters staff, known more for political maneuvering than operational expertise. Agent Daniels, good to see you recovering. Walsh's tone was professionally concerned, his expression carefully neutral. I've been reviewing the preliminary reports of last night's incident. Ray said nothing, waiting. He recognized the bureaucratic dance beginning. Quite extraordinary. A coordinated assault by cartel forces. Your team's response was impressive. Walsh cleared his throat. Though the report raises questions about unauthorized defensive preparations, equipment of unverified origin, and tactical decisions that exceeded standard operating procedures. Harrison tensed visibly, but Ray gave him a subtle gesture to remain silent. "Is there a question, sir?" Ray asked. "Several, actually. But they can wait until the formal review board." Walsh's expression softened slightly. "For now, Headquarters has issued a commendation for your entire team. Your actions prevented what could have been a devastating breach of border security, and the tactical support we requested before the assault." Walsh had the grace to look uncomfortable. "There appears to have been an unfortunate prioritization error. Rest assured, that aspect of the incident is being thoroughly reviewed." Translation: someone had buried their request, and now Headquarters was covering its tracks. "We'll be increasing security at all checkpoints in the sector," Walsh continued. "Additional personnel, enhanced equipment, improved response protocols. The cartel must understand that such actions will be met with overwhelming force." Ray listened to the bureaucratic promises with weary skepticism. He'd heard them before, after similar incidents. The reinforcements would arrive, the attention would focus briefly on border security, and then priorities would shift again once the media coverage faded. "Your team performed exceptionally under extraordinary circumstances," Walsh concluded. "When you're recovered, we should discuss your insights on checkpoint security procedures. Your unconventional approaches appear to have merit." After Walsh departed, Harrison let out a long breath. "Unbelievable. Now they want your expertise, after ignoring every recommendation you've made for the past year." Ray adjusted his position, wincing at the pain in his side. "That's how it works. Crisis creates opportunity for change. Think anything will actually improve? Temporarily, until the next budget cycle or policy shift." Ray had seen the pattern too many times to harbor illusions. "But we'll use whatever resources they provide to strengthen our position. Prepare for next time." "You think there will be a next time? After what happened to his forces?" "El Cuchillo is still alive. The cartel still needs that corridor." Ray's expression darkened. "And now it's personal. We humiliated him, cost him men and resources. He'll be back, better prepared, with more intelligence on our capabilities." Harrison nodded, understanding the reality of their situation. The cartel had unlimited resources, strategic patience, and institutional memory. They could afford to wait, adapt, and try again. "So what's our play? We heal. We rebuild. We prepare." Ray's voice strengthened with resolve. "And this time, we don't wait for them to bring the fight to us." The implications hung in the air between them. They both knew what Ray was suggesting, taking the initiative rather than remaining defensive. Moving from reactive to proactive operations. Crossing lines that Border Patrol officially couldn't cross. "The Ranger Network?" Harrison asked quietly. "Among other resources." Ray had been making connections throughout the border enforcement community for years, building relationships with operators who understood the reality on the ground rather than the political narratives from Washington. "Technically outside our authority," Harrison noted, though his tone suggested agreement rather than objection. "So is assaulting a United States border checkpoint with military-grade weapons." Ray's expression hardened. "They crossed that line. They brought war to our doorstep. They don't get to dictate the terms of engagement anymore." A nurse entered, checking Ray's vitals and adjusting his four. After she left, Harrison leaned closer. "The team's with you. Every one of them." After Emerson, his voice trailed off momentarily. "We're all in. Whatever it takes." Ray nodded, the weight of command settling back onto his shoulders. He'd led men in combat across 3 continents, made life-and-death decisions under the worst conditions imaginable. But this, committing his team to an operation that existed in the shadowy borderlands between official policy and necessary action, represented a new threshold. "Get some rest," Harrison said, rising to leave. "I'll check on Rodriguez and Lopez, then meet with the others. We'll be ready when you are." After Harrison departed, Ray lay in the sterile hospital room, processing the events that had led to this moment. They'd won the battle, Barely, but the war was just beginning. El Cuchillo would regroup, adapt, and return with greater force and better intelligence. Next time, official reinforcements might again arrive too late. Next time, the cartel might succeed in overrunning the checkpoint, opening a corridor for their operations that would flood the region with narcotics, weapons, and human trafficking. Unless someone stopped them first. Ray reached for the satellite phone Harrison had left beside the bed. The secure line to his Ranger network. Former operators now working throughout government agencies and private security, men who understood that sometimes the official response was insufficient. He had one call to make, then planning would begin. Not for defense this time, but for offense. El Cuchillo had declared war on Ray's checkpoint. Now he would learn what it meant to face a Ranger on the Ranger's terms. The cartel commander had made a critical mistake. He'd attacked American soil, killed an American agent, and then retreated thinking the matter concluded, that the bureaucratic constraints of border enforcement would prevent meaningful retaliation. He was wrong. As Ray dialed the secure number, his resolve hardened into cold certainty. The next move would be his, not El Cuchillo's. And it would come from a direction the cartel commander would never expect. 3 weeks after the assault on the checkpoint, Ray stood on the rooftop observation post, watching the desert sunrise paint the landscape in hues of amber and gold. His side still ached where the cartel rounds had torn through flesh and muscle, but he'd refused additional medical leave. There was too much at stake to remain sidelined. Below, the checkpoint hummed with renewed activity. True to Walsh's word, headquarters had temporarily prioritized border security in the sector. Additional agents had been assigned. New equipment had arrived. The physical damage from the assault had been repaired, barriers reinforced, security systems upgraded. But Ray knew it was superficial, reactive rather than proactive, a political response rather than a strategic one. Harrison approached, offering a steaming cup of coffee. Satellite feed just came in. You'll want to see this. In the command center, Ray studied the high-resolution imagery on the secure terminal. The photos showed a compound 20 miles inside Mexico, a sprawling ranch house surrounded by outbuildings and defensive positions. Vehicles were parked in tactical configurations. Armed men patrolled the perimeter. El Cuchillo's new headquarters, Harrison explained. Confirmation came in yesterday from our sources across the border. He's consolidating his operation, bringing in additional personnel and equipment. Ray studied the images with professional assessment, noting defensive positions, patrol patterns, approach vectors. How's his recovery progressing? Sources say he's still limited by the wounds you inflicted. Requires regular medical treatment. But he's operational, directing the rebuilding effort personally. Ray nodded, processing this information against the intelligence they'd gathered since the assault. El Cuchillo had withdrawn temporarily, but not abandoned his objective. The cartel still needed the corridor through Ray's sector. Their defeat had only delayed their plans. Activity at the border crossings, increased surveillance on their side, probing movements, testing our response patterns. They're gathering intelligence, preparing for another attempt. Harrison hesitated, but different this time. Less direct. They're adapting. Of course they were. El Cuchillo was a professional, trained in special operations. He wouldn't repeat the same approach after its failure. He'd find another vector, another vulnerability to exploit. And our initiative? Ray asked quietly. Harrison glanced toward the door, ensuring they were alone. Assets are in position. Waiting for your final approval. Ray nodded, feeling the weight of the decision. What they were planning existed outside official channels, beyond the bureaucratic constraints of border patrol. Necessary, but unauthorized. Potentially career-ending if exposed. Perhaps worse. The team. Ready. Committed. Harrison's expression hardened. For Emerson. For Emerson. The young agent's funeral had been held a week after the assault, a formal border patrol ceremony with flags and speeches and promises of justice. Ray had stood stoically throughout, accepting condolences from officials who had denied their requests for reinforcement before the attack. Politics and procedural constraints wouldn't bring Emerson back, wouldn't prevent the next attack, wouldn't stop the flow of narcotics and weapons through their sector if El Cuchillo succeeded. Something else would have to. Confirm the operation for tonight, Ray decided. Full briefing at 1800 hours. As Harrison departed, Ray returned to the satellite imagery. The compound was well organized, professionally defended. Assaulting it directly would be suicide, even with their enhanced capabilities. But that wasn't their objective. Intelligence was their target. Understanding the cartel's new strategy. Identifying vulnerabilities. Gathering the information necessary to disrupt their operations before they could threaten American soil again. At least, that was the official justification Ray had presented to the core team members participating in the operation. The truth was more personal, more primal. El Cuchillo had brought war to Ray's checkpoint, had killed one of Ray's people. Some debts could only be settled directly. As the day progressed, Ray maintained his official duties supervising the checkpoint. The increased staffing had actually complicated his leadership role, with new agents requiring integration into his established systems. Some resented his demanding standards. Others struggled to adapt to his tactical approach to border security. Chief Martinez approached as Ray was reviewing the updated patrol schedules. Just intercepted chatter from across the border. Multiple vehicles moving north toward our sector. Matches cartel transport patterns. Ray studied the report, probing our response capabilities, testing whether we've relaxed security since the assault. He made a decision. Deploy the interdiction team with air support. I want a show of force. Let them see we're still vigilant. The message needed to be clear. Despite their failed assault, the cartel would find no weaknesses in Ray's sector. No easy path through his checkpoint. Throughout the afternoon, Ray methodically prepared for the evening operation. Equipment was checked and rechecked. Routes were verified. Contingency plans established. Everything done with the meticulous attention to detail that had kept him alive through years of special operations. At 1800 hours precisely, Ray assembled the operation team in a secure room beneath the main checkpoint building, a space officially designated for equipment storage but repurposed as an unofficial tactical operations center. 6 individuals gathered around the table. Harrison and Martinez from Ray's Border Patrol team. 3 operators from Ray's Ranger network, identified only by call signs. Men whose official positions in various government agencies would be compromised by their participation. And Sheriff Becker, whose jurisdiction provided legal coverage for certain aspects of the operation. Gentlemen, Ray began, activating the secure display showing satellite imagery of El Cuchillo's compound. Tonight we gather intelligence on cartel operations threatening our sector. This is not an assault mission, not an enforcement action. We observe, document, and withdraw without detection. The distinction was important, offering at least nominal deniability if something went wrong. Everyone in the room understood the reality. They were crossing a line, operating in shadow space between official authority and necessity. Our primary objective is the communication center, located here. Ray indicated a structure within the compound. Intelligence suggests El Cuchillo is coordinating with other cartel operations, potentially preparing coordinated actions against multiple border sectors simultaneously. Ray detailed the operation plan, approach vectors, infiltration methods, contingency protocols. The team would cross the border at 2,300 hours, using terrain features for concealment. Advanced surveillance equipment would document cartel operations and intercept communications. They would place remote monitoring devices at strategic locations for ongoing intelligence gathering. Questions? Ray concluded. Risk assessment if compromised? One of the Ranger operators asked. Hi, Ray acknowledged frankly. Officially, this operation doesn't exist. No extraction support. No QREF. If compromised, we extract ourselves using alternate routes Alpha or Bravo. The operators nodded, accepting the reality. They'd all operated under similar constraints before. The nature of deniable operations. Rules of engagement? Martinez asked. Defensive only, Ray emphasized. We avoid contact. But if engaged? He paused, meeting each man's eyes. We protect our own. No one gets left behind. The briefing concluded with final equipment checks and communications protocols. Ray dismissed the team to prepare, holding Harrison back momentarily. Final verification on El Cuchillo's presence? Confirmed as of 1,600 hours. He's scheduled to meet with Cartel leadership tonight regarding the new border strategy. Ray nodded, absorbing this information without visible reaction. El Cuchillo would be present during their operation, the man responsible for the assault on his checkpoint, for Emerson's death. The man Ray had wounded but failed to neutralize. An additional variable. A potential complication. An opportunity. As darkness fell across the desert, Ray completed his preparations. Beneath his civilian tactical gear, the wound in his side throbbed dully. The doctors had advised against field operations for at least another month. But this couldn't wait. The intelligence window was time-sensitive. The threat immediate. At least, that's what he told himself. At 2,200 hours, the team departed in unmarked vehicles, taking separate routes to the rendezvous point 2 miles from the border. No official record of their movement existed. No documentation of their absence. For all official purposes, Ray and his Border Patrol team members were off-duty, recuperating from the checkpoint assault. The rendezvous location was a dry creek bed offering concealment from air surveillance. The team assembled silently, performing final equipment checks. Night vision systems. Secure communications. Specialized surveillance gear provided by one of the ranger operators whose current assignment gave him access to classified technology. Ray studied his team with critical assessment. Despite their different backgrounds and agencies, they moved with the synchronized efficiency of experienced operators. The universal language of special operations transcended organizational boundaries. Comms check, Ray ordered, testing the encrypted tactical network. Each team member reported in sequence, voices crisp and professional. At 22:45, they moved out, crossing the border on foot, using terrain features for concealment, maintaining tactical spacing. Ray's side burned with each step, but he pushed the pain aside, focusing on the mission parameters. The wound was a distraction, a weakness he couldn't afford. The memory of Emerson's funeral flashed unbidden through his mind. The young agent's family receiving the folded flag. The hollow promises of justice from officials who would pursue it only through official channels, bureaucratic measures, diplomatic requests to Mexican authorities who were often compromised by cartel influence. This was different, direct, necessary. 2 hours of careful movement brought them within observation range of El Cuchillo's compound. The facility spread across a small valley, buildings arranged in defensive configuration, security lighting illuminating the perimeter. Guard patrols moved with military precision, evidence of El Cuchillo's professional standards. Ray signaled a halt, deploying his team in concealed observation positions overlooking the compound. Surveillance equipment was established, directional microphones, thermal imaging, signal intercept technology scanning for communications. Command, Echo 1, came the first report through their secure communications. East Perimeter has 6 active guards, rotating positions every 30 minutes. Standard patrol pattern. Echo 2. West Approach has vehicle checkpoint and reinforced positions. Minimal approach cover. The reports continued, building a comprehensive assessment of the compound's security. Professional, thorough, but not impenetrable. Ray identified potential vulnerabilities, gaps in patrol coverage, blind spots in the security lighting, approach vectors with sufficient concealment. For future reference. For contingency planning. Not for tonight's mission. At least, that was the operational directive. Through his enhanced optics, Ray observed a meeting in the main building. Figures gathered around a table, gesturing at what appeared to be maps or diagrams. One figure stood apart, taller, with distinctive bearing despite visible discomfort in his movements. El Cuchillo, still affected by the wounds Ray had inflicted during the checkpoint assault. Command, Echo 3. Intercepting communications. They're discussing border operations. Multiple crossing points being coordinated for a major shipment. Record everything, Ray ordered. I want times, locations, personnel involved. For the next hour, they gathered intelligence as the cartel meeting continued. The specialized equipment captured conversations, documented participants, recorded operational details. Evidence of an extensive operation being planned. One that would overwhelm border security through coordinated action across multiple sectors. Exactly what Ray had suspected. El Cuchillo wasn't just attempting to establish a crossing through Ray's sector. He was coordinating with other cartel elements for a comprehensive border infiltration strategy. Command, Echo 4. Vehicle approaching from the south. Multiple occupants, armed. Ray shifted his observation position, tracking the approaching vehicle. A heavily modified SUV with reinforced components and tactical adaptations. Not unusual for cartel operations in contested territory. The vehicle entered the compound, passing through security checkpoints with minimal verification. Important visitors, then. The occupants emerged, 5 men in tactical gear, moving with professional discipline. One carried a hardened case with evident care. New players, Harrison observed from his position beside Ray. Different from the security personnel. Ray studied the newcomers with growing concern. Their equipment, their movement patterns, their security protocols. These weren't standard cartel operators. These were professionals, specialists. The group proceeded directly to the main building, bypassing standard security measures. The man with the case remained especially vigilant, maintaining positive control of his cargo at all times. I don't like this, Ray muttered. That case is being handled with hazardous materials protocols. As if confirming his assessment, the compound security posture visibly elevated after the group's arrival. Additional guards deployed. Patrols tightened. A nervous energy pervaded the operation. Command, Echo 3. Intercepted partial communications. Reference to the package and demonstration requirements. Something about appropriate targeting for maximum effect. An uneasy sensation settled in Ray's gut, the same instinctive warning that had saved his life in combat zones across 3 continents. Whatever was happening in that compound had escalated beyond narcotics trafficking or border infiltration. Adjust surveillance priority to the new arrivals, in that case, Ray ordered. I want visual confirmation of the contents. For 30 tense minutes, they maintained observation as the meeting continued inside. The case remained closed, its contents unrevealed to their surveillance. But the reactions of those present told its own story, expressions of shock, heated discussion, eventual grim resolution. Finally, the case was opened. Their enhanced optics captured partial imagery, metallic components, electronic elements, specialized containment vessels. Is that what I think it is? Harrison whispered, tension evident in his voice. Uncertain, Ray replied, though his instincts screamed confirmation. We need better visual. As if responding to his requirement, the meeting participants moved to an outbuilding, bringing the case and its contents. Better lighting, fewer obstructions to their surveillance. The case was opened again, contents displayed more clearly. Ray documented everything, his experienced eye cataloging components, configurations, specialized equipment. Command to all elements, Ray transmitted, his voice controlled despite the implications of what they were witnessing. Be advised, targets appear to be handling components for an improvised radiological dispersal device. A dirty bomb, not just a border infiltration operation or narcotics trafficking. El Cuchillo had escalated to weapons of mass destruction, devices designed to spread radioactive material across populated areas, creating terror and long-term contamination. Confirmation? One of the Ranger operators requested. Components consistent with IAEA classified threat assessments, Ray confirmed. Specialized containment, trigger assembly, dispersal mechanism. The implications were immediate and severe. This wasn't an intelligence-gathering mission anymore. They were witnessing preparation for a terrorist attack on American soil. Withdraw to Rally Point Alpha, Ray ordered. Maintain all surveillance records. Priority 1 protocol. The team acknowledged, beginning careful extraction from their observation positions. The intelligence they'd gathered had transformed the situation entirely. What had been an unauthorized cross-border operation was now documentation of an imminent national security threat. As the team withdrew, Ray maintained final observation of the compound. El Cuchillo was visibly directing the operation, gesturing toward maps of the border region, including markers Ray recognized as population centers in his sector. Targets: American cities and towns where civilians would be exposed to radioactive contamination, where panic would ensue, overwhelming emergency services, where long-term health effects would devastate communities. Ray felt a cold clarity settle over his thoughts, the kind of focused certainty that came in critical moments when outcomes balanced on immediate decisions. He'd felt it before, in Afghanistan when his squad was ambushed, in Iraq when extraction had failed, in countless moments when official protocols proved insufficient for ground reality. "Harrison," he said quietly, "lead the team to extraction. Ensure the intelligence reaches the proper channels." Harrison turned sharply. "What are you doing?" "Contingency operation." Ray's voice was calm, decided. "That device cannot cross the border." "That's not our mission," Harrison protested, though his tone suggested he understood Ray's intent. "We're intelligence only tonight. Mission parameters have changed." Ray checked his weapon with practiced efficiency. "This is my decision alone. No one else is involved." Harrison gripped Ray's shoulder. "You go in there alone. You're not coming out. The intelligence has to reach headquarters regardless of what happens here," Ray emphasized. "That's priority 1. Make sure it gets to people who'll act on it." For a long moment, Harrison held Ray's gaze, professional objection warring with personal loyalty. Then he nodded once, understanding. "Time frame. If I'm not at extraction point Bravo by 0400, implement Ranger Protocol Zulu." The protocol they'd established for a compromised operator, essentially, disavowal of connection. Harrison hesitated, then extended his hand. "See you at Bravo. Count on it." As the team withdrew into the darkness, Ray remained in position, methodically preparing for what came next. This wasn't the mission he'd planned, wasn't the operation he'd authorized, was certainly beyond any official Border Patrol authority. But some threats transcended bureaucratic boundaries. Some moments demanded action regardless of official sanction. Radiological weapons being prepared for deployment against American civilians qualified on both counts. Ray studied the compound again, identifying approach vectors, security patterns, vulnerabilities. El Cuchillo ran a professional operation, but no security was perfect, especially against an opponent willing to accept extreme risk. Moving with practiced stealth, Ray circled the compound perimeter, identifying a drainage culvert that passed beneath the eastern fence line. Tight quarters, but manageable. Security sensors present but basic, designed to detect larger intrusions, not a single determined operator. Ray disabled the sensor with specialized equipment, then slipped through the culvert, ignoring the burning pain in his side as the confined space pressed against his healing wound. Inside the perimeter, he took cover behind a maintenance building, observing patrol patterns. Clockwork precision. 30-second windows between overlapping patrol sectors. Predictable for someone with Ray's experience, a vulnerability El Cuchillo should have identified. Ray moved during the first window, advancing to the shadow of a parked truck. From there, another window allowed approach to the maintenance shed attached to the main building. Each movement calculated, each position selected for concealment and subsequent options. The outbuilding where they'd taken the radiological components had minimal security, just 2 guards at the entrance. Overconfidence in their perimeter security. Another vulnerability. Ray circled to the rear of the structure, identifying a service entrance with basic locking mechanisms. Amateur by comparison to the rest of the security protocols. He made quick work of the lock, slipping inside to a storage area. Voices came from the main room beyond, Spanish with the distinctive northern Mexican accent Ray recognized from their surveillance. Technical discussion about handling procedures, contamination risks, transport requirements. Ray checked his watch. The team should be approaching the border by now, carrying the intelligence that would trigger official response. But official response would take time, analysis, authorization, deployment planning. Hours at minimum. Perhaps days given cross-border operational constraints. The radiological device might be across the border before then. Might already be in transport configuration. Ray moved silently through the storage area, approaching the door to the main room. Through a small gap, he observed the interior. For men in protective equipment handling components with evident expertise. The specialized case opened on a workbench, partially assembled device visible. Not fully weaponized yet. Still in preparation stages. A window of opportunity. Ray assessed options, calculating risk against objective. Direct confrontation would trigger compound-wide response. Even with surprise advantage, he couldn't neutralize 4 targets before alarm was raised. Alternative approach required. The building's design provided the answer. Standard construction for the region, supporting walls, exposed roof beams, minimal interior partitions. Ray identified the circuit breaker panel near the storage area entrance. Primitive, but effective. He waited, timing the work cycle of the team inside. When they began transferring components to a specialized transport container, Ray acted. Primary circuit breakers disabled, plunging the building into darkness. Immediate confusion from within, voices raised in alarm. Ray moved through the door as emergency lighting activated. Dim, insufficient illumination casting disorienting shadows. The operators fumbled for weapons, disoriented by the sudden transition. Ray engaged with surgical precision. The first 2 targets neutralized before they could orient to the threat. The third managed to raise his weapon but fired wide in the poor lighting. Ray's return fire was precisely targeted. The 4th operator had better situational awareness, taking cover behind the workbench where the device components were spread. He fired rapidly, rounds impacting around Ray's position, forcing defensive movement. Ray calculated angle, lighting, positioning. 1 operator remaining. Device components exposed on the workbench. Priority clear. Ray feigned movement in one direction, drawing fire, then reversed with explosive acceleration, closing distance before the operator could adjust aim. 3 rounds center mass ended the threat. Immediate check of the room confirmed all 4 operators neutralized. Ray secured the entrance, then turned attention to the partially assembled device on the workbench. His specialized training included recognition of CBRN threats: chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. Enough knowledge to identify critical components in the assembly before him. The radioactive material remained in specialized containment. Small metallic cylinders designed for industrial applications, repurposed for weapons use. Standard terrorist methodology. Obtain radioactive material from industrial or medical sources. Combine with conventional explosives for dispersal. Create contamination and terror disproportionate to the technical complexity. Ray heard raised voices outside. The security team responding to gunfire. Time constraints narrowing rapidly. With practiced efficiency, Ray destroyed the specialized electronics that formed the trigger assembly, the most technically sophisticated component, difficult to replace quickly. The radioactive material itself he secured in its original containment vessels, designed to prevent leakage or exposure. The door burst open as the first security team arrived. Ray was already moving, using the workbench for cover as he engaged the new threats. 2 guards fell immediately, the others retreating to defensive positions. Ray used the momentary advantage to exit through his original entry point, carrying the secured radioactive material. Neutralizing the device had been the priority. Denying the cartel access to the radioactive components was secondary but significant. Compound alarms activated as Ray moved through the storage area and out the service entrance. Security personnel were mobilizing across the facility, but initial confusion about the nature and location of the threat provided critical seconds. Ray moved along his pre-identified extraction route, using buildings and vehicles for concealment. The perimeter fence loomed ahead, designed to keep people out, less effective at keeping someone in if they were willing to sacrifice stealth for speed. Gunfire erupted as the first security team spotted his movement. Rounds impacted around him as Ray accelerated toward the fence, returning targeted fire to suppress immediate threats. The pain in his side flared into blinding intensity as he vaulted a maintenance vehicle, the physical exertion tearing at barely healed tissue. Ray pushed through it, compartmentalizing the pain as he'd been trained to do. The fence was 15 meters ahead when he heard the distinctive voice cutting through the chaos. "The Ranger! Don't let him escape." El Cuchillo himself, recognizing Ray despite the tactical gear and darkness, directing his forces with professional precision even amid the confusion. Ray didn't hesitate, didn't look back. Adjusting his approach vector to utilize available cover, he continued toward the fence. 10 meters. Security personnel converging from multiple directions. Targeted fire becoming more accurate as they oriented to his position. 5 meters. A round grazed his arm, another impacted his armor. The security forces finding their discipline amid chaos. El Cuchillo's training evident in their recovery. At the fence, Ray deployed specialized cutting equipment, creating an opening barely sufficient for passage. Security forces closed from 3 directions, converging fire forcing momentary cover behind a concrete barrier. Ray returned precisely targeted fire, neutralizing immediate threats, then moved through the fence opening into the darkness beyond. The containment vessels secured in his tactical pack, their weight a constant reminder of what was at stake. Behind him, the compound erupted in coordinated pursuit. Vehicles activated. Additional forces deployed. El Cuchillo's voice continuing to direct operations with cold efficiency. Ray moved into the desert night, activating pre-planned extraction protocols. The rendezvous at Bravo was 3 miles northeast, difficult terrain, minimal cover, but navigable with proper knowledge of the landscape. Behind him, vehicle headlights swept the immediate perimeter. Pursuit teams would be deploying along likely escape routes. El Cuchillo would anticipate standard evasion tactics, predict movement based on terrain and training. Ray didn't follow standard patterns. Instead, he moved against tactical logic, directly toward a ridge that offered no concealment, extreme physical challenge, but unexpected direction. The wound in his side screamed with each vertical movement, blood now flowing freely inside his tactical gear. Dawn broke across the desert as Ray crouched in the concealed gully 500 meters from extraction point Bravo. Blood had soaked through his tactical gear, the wound in his side reopened by the night's exertion. But the specialized containment vessels remained secure in his pack, radioactive material that would never reach American cities. He checked his watch. 0358. 2 minutes until the extraction window closed. 2 minutes until Harrison would be forced to implement Protocol Zulu, departing without him, denying any connection to his operation. Through tactical optics, Ray surveyed the extraction point. No visible hostiles, no signs of pursuit, but El Cuchillo was a professional. Absence of evidence wasn't evidence of absence. Ray activated his emergency transmitter, a specialized device broadcasting on frequencies monitored by his team. Single-pulse transmission indicating approach. 3 responding pulses confirmed reception and secure extraction point. Moving with tactical discipline despite physical deterioration, Ray advanced toward the extraction location. Each step carefully placed, each movement calculated. pain compartmentalized through techniques learned in Ranger training. Harrison materialized from concealed position as Ray approached, weapon ready, eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. Cutting it close, Harrison observed, noting Ray's blood-soaked side. Package secured? Confirmed. Ray transferred the containment vessels to Harrison's pack. Critical components neutralized. Device inoperable. Harrison nodded, professional assessment overriding personal concern. Pursuit. Active but misdirected. El Cuchillo deployed forces along southern vectors. We have maybe 20 minutes before they recalibrate. Medical status? Ray gave the honest assessment training demanded. Compromised. Mobile but degrading. Harrison made immediate tactical decision. Extraction route Charlie. Modified for medical contingency. They moved through the pre-dawn darkness, Ray maintaining pace through force of will rather than physical capacity. The wound in his side had progressed beyond pain into a cold numbness that medical training identified as dangerous. Blood loss approaching critical threshold. But the border was just 10 minutes ahead. Extraction vehicles waiting beyond. Medical support standing by. Mission parameters achieved. Intelligence secured. Radiological threat neutralized. All that remained was extraction. Ray had completed more difficult movements under worse conditions. Kandahar Province. Mosul. Operational parameters that would have broken lesser operators. This was just one more extraction. One more mission completed against adverse conditions. Until the distinctive crack of a precision rifle shattered the pre-dawn silence. Harrison dropped instantly, combat instincts overriding conscious thought. Ray followed microseconds behind. Tactical evaluation automatic despite physical deterioration. Sniper team. Ridge to the east. Professional positioning. Ray's assessment was clinical, detached. Harrison verified through tactical optics. Confirmed. Two-man team. Elevated position with commanding field of fire. El Cuchillo had anticipated their extraction route. Had deployed his most valuable asset to the most advantageous position. Professional. Thorough. Options. Harrison asked, already calculating alternatives. Ray assessed terrain, capabilities, time constraints. They control all viable approach vectors to the border. No concealment in effective range. The unspoken reality hung between them. They were pinned down by professional snipers with superior positioning. Conventional extraction impossible without neutralizing the threat. I'll draw fire, Ray decided. Create operational window for your extraction with the package. Harrison's objection was immediate. Negative. Your physical condition precludes effective diversionary tactics. Not a debate. Ray's tone carried the authority of command decisions made under combat conditions. Package extraction is mission priority. Everything else is secondary. Harrison understood the calculus. The radioactive material had to reach American authorities. Had to be secured. Intelligence about the cartel's escalation to radiological threats had to be delivered. Everything else, including individual operators, was secondary to mission objectives. Acknowledged, Harrison finally conceded. Extraction plan? I move east, drawing their attention. You execute rapid extraction northwest to alternate border crossing. Ray detailed the approach with tactical precision. Maintain the mission timeline regardless of my status. Both men understood what remained unspoken. Ray's compromised physical condition made successful evasion unlikely. This was potentially a one-way diversion. Harrison clasped Ray's shoulder briefly, the gesture containing everything words couldn't express between operators who had faced combat together. See you at the checkpoint, Harrison said, though both recognized the tactical improbability. Count on it. Ray responded with the same formula they'd exchanged before every high-risk operation. Ray verified his weapon, mentally cataloging remaining ammunition and physical capabilities. The blood loss had accelerated, weakness spreading through his system. But he'd operated under worse conditions. Had completed missions with more significant impairment. All that mattered was creating an extraction window, ensuring the package reached American soil, completing the mission. On the count of 3, Ray broke cover, moving laterally across the sniper team's field of fire. Controlled, erratic movement designed to draw attention and complicate targeting solutions. The precision rifle cracked again. Dirt erupted 2 meters to Ray's left. A miss, but professionally close despite his evasive movement. These weren't cartel gunmen. These were trained operators with specialized skills. Ray returned targeted fire, not expecting hits at this range, but forcing defensive positioning, creating precious seconds for Harrison's extraction with the package. Through peripheral vision, Ray confirmed Harrison's movement, rapid, disciplined advance toward the northwest extraction route. The package in motion. Mission parameters maintained. The sniper team adjusted fire, rounds impacting closer to Ray's position with each shot. Professional correction. Methodical targeting. Ray continued evasive movement while prosecuting targeted response fire, deviating from conventional patterns to complicate enemy calculations, until a round found its mark. The impact spun Ray sideways, the round penetrating his right thigh with explosive force. Professional shot, designed to immobilize rather than kill, to capture rather than eliminate. El Cuchillo wanted him alive. Ray automatically implemented critical wound protocols, quick assessment, tactical tourniquet application, force continuation despite system shock. Keep moving. Maintain mission integrity. Create extraction window for the package. Through blurring vision, Ray confirmed Harrison's successful movement beyond effective sniper range. Package extraction proceeding according to parameters. Mission objectives maintained. Ray adjusted tactical approach. Immobilized, but still operational. He established defensive position behind terrain feature, weapon oriented toward likely enemy advance vectors. The sniper team would maintain overwatch while ground forces converged. Standard tactical procedure for high-value target capture. Ray had maybe 3 minutes before engagement parameters shifted from standoff to direct contact. 3 minutes. Sufficient for Harrison to reach extraction vehicles, to cross the border with the package, to deliver critical intelligence. Mission success. Ray felt an unexpected calm settle through his system, the clarity that came with mission completion, with knowing operational objectives would be achieved regardless of individual outcome. He'd experienced similar moments before. The ambush outside Kandahar where half his squad had fallen. The rooftop extraction in Mosul under overwhelming opposition. Combat scenarios where survival seemed tactically improbable but mission parameters demanded completion regardless. This was just another extraction. Another mission. The only difference was that this time, he was the acceptable operational loss. Ray heard vehicles approaching, the ground team converging on his position under sniper overwatch. Professional operational structure. El Cuchillo coordinating personally, based on radio transmissions Ray could partially intercept through his tactical gear. They wanted him alive. Wanted to know who had authorized the operation. What agency had penetrated their security. How much intelligence had been gathered about their radiological program. Information Ray would never provide, regardless of interrogation methods. Training had prepared him for this contingency as well. The first vehicle appeared at the perimeter of his defensive position, tactical approach, personnel deployed in professional formation. Not standard cartel gunmen. Specialized operators with evident training. Ray engaged selectively, conserving limited ammunition while achieving maximum tactical effect. 2 hostiles neutralized immediately. The others established covered positions, returning disciplined fire. Professional standoff engagement. They would maintain containment while additional forces arrived. Standard procedure for high-value target capture when time constraints weren't critical. Ray verified his remaining tactical capabilities. Limited ammunition. Compromised mobility. Degrading physical condition from blood loss. Realistic operational assessment indicated minimal survival probability. But survival had never been the mission parameter. Package extraction had been the objective. intelligence delivery the priority. Both achieved. Mission success by operational standards. Ray heard helicopter rotors in the distance. Additional cartel resources deploying to the containment operation. El Cuchillo committing significant assets to his capture. An odd professional pride mingled with tactical resignation. He disrupted their radiological program, compromised their operational security, extracted critical intelligence, forced commitment of premium resources. Operational success by any reasonable standard. The helicopter appeared on the horizon, approaching rapidly. Not the cartel's usual transport. This was a military-grade aircraft with tactical specifications. El Cuchillo had access to resources beyond standard criminal organizations. Ray prepared for final defensive positioning. Limited ammunition allocated for maximum effect. Tactical approach determined for optimal resistance despite compromised mobility. The helicopter banked sharply as it approached, executing an evasive maneuver inconsistent with an extraction operation. Door gunners deployed, but oriented away from Ray's position, engaging the cartel ground forces instead. Not a cartel asset. Something else. Ray's tactical radio crackled to life. Ranger actual to Maverick. Hold position for immediate extraction. Ray felt momentary disorientation. His Ranger network responding with assets inconsistent with their operational capabilities. This wasn't standard border patrol. Wasn't conventional law enforcement. The helicopter executed a combat landing 30 meters from Ray's position, door gunners maintaining suppressive fire against cartel forces. For operators deployed in tactical formation, establishing defensive perimeter while two advanced directly toward Ray's position. Package secure, the lead operator asked as they reached him, medical specialist already addressing his wounds with combat treatment protocols. Affirmative. Secondary extraction route with Harrison. Confirmed. Harrison and package crossed border checkpoint 6 minutes ago. Secured by Border Tactical. Professional relief flooded Ray's system. Mission completion verified by trusted assets. Package secured on American soil. Intelligence in appropriate channels. Operational success. The extraction team worked with practiced efficiency, stabilizing Ray's wounds while preparing for immediate transport. The tactical specialist maintained communication with the helicopter crew, coordinating departure vectors and suppressive fire requirements. Who authorized this? Ray asked as they secured him for movement, the medical specialist establishing access for fluid replacement. Classified, the team leader responded, though his expression conveyed additional meaning. Let's just say certain agencies take radiological threats against American soil extremely seriously. Understanding crystallized through Ray's tactical awareness. His Ranger network had forwarded the intelligence up specialized channels. Had activated response protocols beyond conventional authorization. Had committed resources typically reserved for national security contingencies. The extraction team moved Ray to the helicopter under covering fire, the aircraft already spooling for immediate departure. Professional efficiency throughout the operation, indicating specialized training beyond conventional tactical units. As the helicopter lifted off, banking sharply to avoid potential ground fire, Ray observed the cartel forces below, frustration evident in their disorganized response to the unexpected extraction operation. El Cuchillo visible among them, tracking the departing aircraft with cold fury. Border crossing in 3 minutes, the pilot announced over tactical communications. Medical assets standing by at secure facility. Ray processed this information against his understanding of available resources in the sector. No conventional border patrol facility had these capabilities. No standard law enforcement agency maintained these assets. Something else had been activated. Something beyond his operational clearance. The tactical team leader noted Ray's questioning expression. Your intel about radiological materials triggered specific protocols, he explained, maintaining operational security while acknowledging Ray's need to understand. Certain authorities supersede conventional jurisdictions, when WMD threats are verified. Ray nodded, understanding the implications. His unauthorized cross-border operation had escalated beyond Border Patrol jurisdiction the moment they'd confirmed the radiological threat, had activated national security protocols that operated under different authorities. The helicopter crossed the border, American soil passing beneath them. Mission complete. Extraction successful. Threat neutralized. Ray felt the professional satisfaction of operational success mingling with physical relief as the medical specialist continued treatment protocols. They would reach the secure facility within minutes, would receive proper medical attention, would transition from tactical operation to recovery status. Your team performed exceptionally, the tactical leader noted, professional respect evident in his tone. The intelligence you gathered has already been integrated into ongoing operations against Cartel WMD capabilities. Ray absorbed this information with modified understanding. His unauthorized operation had intersected with something larger, ongoing efforts against proliferation threats that operated on authorities beyond conventional law enforcement. What happens now? Ray asked as the helicopter began its descent toward a secured landing zone. The tactical leader considered his response, balancing operational security against professional courtesy. That depends on you, he finally answered. There are agencies that value operators with your capabilities and judgment, particularly when conventional channels prove insufficient for emerging threats. The implication was clear. His actions, though outside official Border Patrol authority, had demonstrated capabilities that certain specialized agencies valued, had opened doors to operational environments where the constraints that had frustrated him at the checkpoint didn't apply. 3 months after the cross-border operation, Ray stood on the observation platform of the checkpoint, watching the desert sunset paint the landscape in crimson and gold. His wounds had healed, though occasional twinges reminded him of how close the mission had come to failure. The checkpoint itself had been transformed. Additional personnel, enhanced security systems, improved tactical capabilities. The official response to the cartel assault had finally materialized, though Ray understood its temporary nature. Bureaucratic attention always shifted with political priorities. "Chief, the new team is assembled for briefing," Harrison reported, approaching with professional deference despite their shared experiences. Ray nodded, taking a final moment to survey the terrain he defended against overwhelming odds. Tomorrow, he would relinquish command of the checkpoint, would transition to his new role with the specialized task force that had extracted him from Mexico. The debriefings had been intensive, his unauthorized operation thoroughly dissected by intelligence officials with clearances he'd never encountered in Border Patrol. The radiological materials he'd secured had been confirmed as weapons-grade, sufficient for multiple devices targeting American cities. El Cuchillo had gone underground following the operation, his cartel connections insufficient to shield him from the multinational response triggered by verified WMD proliferation. Intelligence suggested he had fled to Central America, though Ray suspected he would eventually resurface. Men like El Cuchillo didn't abandon their ambitions easily. In the command center, Ray's team had gathered for his final briefing. Faces that had stood with him through the cartel assault, had maintained operational security during the cross-border mission, had earned his respect through professional dedication despite bureaucratic constraints. As of 0800 tomorrow, I'm transferring command to Agent Williams, Ray announced without preamble. He's experienced, capable, and familiar with the unique challenges of this sector. The team received this information with professional acknowledgement. They'd known this transition was coming, had recognized the specialized attention Ray had received following the operation in Mexico. The systems we've implemented will remain in place, Ray continued. The protocols we've established have proven effective. Williams will maintain operational continuity while implementing his own leadership approach. Ray didn't elaborate on his next assignment, couldn't share details of the specialized task force operating under authorities beyond conventional law enforcement. The team understood, respected operational security. After the briefing concluded, Harrison remained behind. "They're getting a good operator," he said simply. Ray nodded, accepting the professional acknowledgement. "The checkpoint's in good hands with Williams, and you'll keep him honest." Both men understood what remained unspoken. The bureaucratic constraints would return. The resources would eventually diminish. But the systems they'd built, the networks they'd established, those would endure. As dusk settled across the desert, Ray completed his final inspection of the checkpoint. The reinforced barriers, the enhanced observation posts, the tactical positions that had repelled a professional assault force. Tomorrow, he would begin a different mission, would operate under different authorities against threats that transcended conventional borders and jurisdictions, would apply the skills honed through years of ranger operations and border enforcement to a broader canvas. But tonight, he stood watch over the checkpoint he'd defended, the border he'd protected, the oath he'd upheld despite insufficient resources and bureaucratic indifference. The cartel's defeat was undeniable. Though some questioned the extent of Ray's actions, most celebrated the powerful message sent. America does not bow to intimidation. Ray, humble yet firm, quietly stepped back from the limelight, continuing duties without fanfare, steadfast in moral clarity. His story stands as a testament to an enduring American truth, that genuine strength lies not in aggression but in preparedness, resolve, and the unwavering commitment to justice and liberty for all. What do you think about this incredible stand? Do you believe strength alone guarantees justice, or does real power lie in partnership, strategy, and bravery? Share your perspective in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping real-life stories of courage in the face of overwhelming odds.